Here is something almost nobody tells you in a rushed 12-minute office visit. You do not have to cut out carbohydrates to bring your blood sugar down. In fact, for a lot of people, the fastest and most lasting way to fix their numbers has far less to do with taking foods away and far more to do with adding the right ones in. I know that sounds backwards. We have all been trained to think of high blood sugar as a problem you solve only by subtraction. Less bread, less rice, less of everything you enjoy until eating feels like punishment. But the truth is gentler than that, and it works better. Tonight, I am going to walk you through 10 ordinary foods, the kind you can buy at any grocery store for a few dollars, that talk directly to the machinery underneath your blood sugar. And I'm going to explain exactly why each one works, so you are not just following a list, you actually understand your own body. Before I get to the first one, do me one quick favor. If you want videos that explain the why behind your body, instead of just handing you another prescription, hit subscribe, give this a like, and leave me a comment telling me what your morning fasting number was this week. I read them, and the numbers and ages of the people watching genuinely shape what I make next. Alright, let's get into it. Let me give you the one piece of background that makes everything else click into place. High blood sugar almost always begins upstream with a hormone called insulin. Picture insulin as a key that unlocks your cells so the sugar floating in your blood can get out of the bloodstream and into the cell where it belongs and gets used for energy. Now, when someone has spent years riding the blood sugar roller coaster, big spikes, big crashes, over and over, the cells slowly stop answering the door. The insulin knocks and knocks, and the cell stays shut. That is what we mean by insulin resistance. Your pancreas, trying to be helpful, pumps out more and more insulin to force the issue. Your blood sugar climbs anyway, and the usual next step is a prescription that pushes even more insulin into a system already swimming in it. I am not saying that out of cynicism. Sometimes medication is exactly right and even life-saving. But there is rarely the time in a short visit to teach you how food itself can talk to your insulin receptors. So that is what I am going to do. And here is a simple frame to hold on to. Every one of these 10 foods does one of 3 jobs. It slows the sugar coming in, it cools the inflammation that keeps your cells deaf to insulin, or it helps wake the insulin receptor back up so your own body does the work it was designed to do. You do not need all 10 by tomorrow. Stack them in over a couple of weeks. Let me show you the first. The first food is fenugreek seeds, small, hard, amber-colored seeds you can find in the spice aisle for a couple of dollars. If you skip this one because it sounds exotic, you are walking past one of the most powerful blood sugar tools on the shelf, and it costs less than your morning coffee. Here is what it does inside you. Fenugreek is packed with a soluble fiber called galactomannan. When it meets the water in your stomach, it swells into a thick gel, and that gel physically slows how fast your stomach hands carbohydrates off to your small intestine. Slower handoff means the sugar trickles into your blood instead of flooding it. No flood, no giant spike, no panic dump of insulin. On top of that, fenugreek carries an amino acid that gently nudges the pancreas to release insulin more efficiently. To use it, soak 1 teaspoon of the whole seeds in a glass of water overnight, and in the morning, drink the water and eat the softened seeds before breakfast. If the slightly bitter taste is too much, grind them and stir half a teaspoon into yogurt or over your eggs. Start low. This fiber is strong and your gut needs a few days to adjust. That is number 1. Number 2 is cinnamon, and you almost certainly already have it in your cupboard, but the kind matters, and most people grab the wrong one. The common grocery cinnamon is cassia, and in large daily doses it carries a compound called coumarin that can be hard on the liver. The one you want is Ceylon cinnamon, sometimes labeled true cinnamon, milder, safer for everyday use, and the one I tell my own patients to buy. Now, I want to be straight with you about what cinnamon can and cannot do, because there is a lot of hype out there. The plant compounds in cinnamon, called polyphenols, appear to help your insulin receptors grip glucose a little more tightly and slow your stomach from emptying too fast. The research is genuinely mixed. Some studies show a modest drop in fasting glucose, others show little. So I would never sell this to you as a miracle. But it is cheap, it is safe in the Ceylon form, and a small, reliable edge is still an edge. Use about 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon of Ceylon cinnamon a day, stirred into oatmeal, coffee, or a smoothie. The trick is to pair it with a carbohydrate meal, because that is exactly when you want your receptors gripping harder. Think of cinnamon as a helper, not a hero. That is number 2. Third on the list is broccoli sprouts. And I want you to pay close attention because this is the most underused food in this entire video. Not full broccoli, the little 3-day-old sprouts. Miss that distinction and you miss almost all the benefit. Broccoli sprouts are loaded with a compound called sulforaphane, and the young sprouts contain dramatically more of it than a mature head of broccoli. Sulforaphane does something none of the other foods here do quite as directly. It goes to your liver and quiets down the overnight sugar factory. Your liver makes glucose while you sleep, and in insulin resistance, it tends to make far too much, which is exactly why so many of you wake up with a high fasting number you cannot explain. Here is the honest state of the science. A well-known clinical study out of Sweden found that concentrated sulforaphane lowered fasting blood sugar in people with type 2 diabetes, with the strongest effect in those whose sugar was hardest to control. And a newer trial in pre-diabetes showed a smaller but real effect, depending partly on a person's gut bacteria. So this is promising and mechanistically elegant. Not a guaranteed fix for everyone, but it targets the one problem most foods don't touch. You can grow sprouts on your own counter in a jar for pennies, or buy them in the produce section. A small handful, about a quarter cup, on a salad or sandwich most days is plenty. Do not cook them hard. High heat destroys the active compound, so eat them raw or barely wilted. That is number 3. So far, every food has done the same quiet work, slowing the sugar down or waking the receptor up, and we are only 3 in. The next few change the meals you are already eating. And if someone in your family is fighting their numbers too, send them this video, because this is the stuff no one ever sat them down and explained. Number 4 is the avocado. Most people think of it as a fat to avoid because of the calories, and that fear is genuinely costing them. The fat in an avocado is monounsaturated fat, the same family as olive oil, and it is one of the most blood sugar friendly things you can put on a plate. The reason is simple. That healthy fat and the fiber inside an avocado slow your whole meal down. Add half an avocado to a plate of rice or toast, and you are not removing the carbohydrate. You are putting a brake on how fast it turns into blood sugar, so the glucose climbs gently instead of spiking. Over time, monounsaturated fat has also been linked to better insulin sensitivity, meaning your cells answer that knock a little faster. In my experience, this is the easiest food on the list to turn into a habit, because it makes the meal more filling and you stop reaching for a snack an hour later. Half an avocado a day is sensible. On your eggs, mashed onto whole grain toast, or in a salad that already has a starch in it. Anywhere there's a carbohydrate, an avocado softens the blow. That is number 4. 5th is chia seeds. Tiny gray and black seeds that punch far above their size. If you have ever watched chia sit in liquid and turn into a pudding, you have already seen exactly how it works in your gut. Chia is one of the richest sources of soluble fiber you can buy, and when it meets the water in your stomach, it forms that same thick gel we talked about with fenugreek, a gel that wraps around the carbohydrates in your meal and slows their absorption to a crawl. The sugar releases slowly and steadily, so you sidestep the spike and the crash that leaves you shaky and hungry an hour later. Chia also carries a plant-based omega-3 fat that helps calm the low-grade inflammation sitting underneath insulin resistance. And when you cool that inflammation, the cells start listening to insulin again. 1 to 2 tablespoons a day does the job. Stirred into yogurt, dropped into a glass of water with a squeeze of lemon, or blended into a smoothie. Give it about 10 minutes to gel first, and drink plenty of water alongside, because all that fiber needs liquid to move. That is number 5. Number 6 is fatty fish, and I mean salmon and mackerel specifically. This one does not work by slowing your meal down. It works on the deeper problem, the very reason your cells went deaf to insulin in the first place. Insulin resistance is driven in large part by chronic, low-grade inflammation. And when your body stays quietly inflamed year after year, that inflammation physically interferes with the insulin signal right at the surface of the cell. Salmon and mackerel are loaded with 2 omega-3 fats, EPA and DHA, among the most powerful natural anti-inflammatory compounds we know of. Lower the inflammatory signal and the insulin receptor starts working the way it was meant to. Aim for 2 servings a week, each about the size of your palm. Wild salmon, mackerel, sardines, and herring are all excellent. Bake it, grill it, or buy it canned if that's easier on the budget. Honestly, canned mackerel and sardines are some of the cheapest, most powerful foods in this entire video. That is number 6. 7th on the list is walnuts. Of all the nuts, the one I point people toward first because of what it does for your blood vessels and your insulin at the same time. Walnuts are rich in polyunsaturated fat and the same plant omega-3 found in chia. That fat helps the thin lining inside your blood vessels, the endothelium, which is one of the very first things high blood sugar damages. At the same time, the fat, fiber, and protein in walnuts blunt the rise in blood sugar after a meal and have been linked to lower fasting insulin, the number underneath your blood sugar that tells you how hard your pancreas is straining. Eat a small handful, about a quarter cup, or 7 to 10 whole walnuts as a snack instead of crackers or a cookie, and you have turned a sugar spike into something much flatter. Keep them raw or dry roasted, not candied or honey-coated, and use them to replace a processed snack, not to pile on top of one. That is number 7. Number 8 is eggs. Whole eggs, yolk included. For years, people were told the yolk was the enemy, and that bad advice pushed folks towards sugary breakfast cereals that were far worse for their blood sugar. So let me set it straight. A whole egg is almost pure protein and fat, with virtually no carbohydrate, which means on its own, it barely moves your blood sugar at all. But the real magic is what we call the second meal effect. When you start your day with eggs instead of toast or cereal, you steady your blood sugar not just at breakfast, but all the way through to lunch. You walk into your next meal with calmer numbers and a smaller spike, and the protein and fat keep you full, so those mid-morning cravings that march you toward the cookie jar quietly fade. In my experience, swapping a cereal breakfast for 2 or 3 eggs is one of the single fastest changes you'll see on a morning glucose reading. Scramble them, boil a batch for the week, or fold in some spinach and put that avocado from earlier right on top, and you've built a near perfect blood sugar breakfast. That is number 8. Number 9 is apple cider vinegar, and this is the one with the fastest visible effect on a glucose meter of anything on this list. If you have a meter at home, you can watch this one work tonight. The active ingredient is acetic acid, and it does 2 things at once. It slows your stomach from emptying, so the carbohydrates in your meal arrive gradually instead of all at once, and it helps your muscles pull glucose out of your blood to use for fuel. The research here is some of the strongest on the whole list. Careful studies, including well-known work from Arizona State University, have found that a tablespoon of vinegar before a carbohydrate meal can meaningfully blunt the after-meal blood sugar spike in people with insulin resistance, on the order of around 20% in some trials. That is a real effect from something that costs a few dollars a bottle. Take 1 tablespoon, and this matters, diluted in a full glass of water 10 to 15 minutes before a meal that has carbohydrates in it. Always dilute it, never drink it straight, because the acid is hard on tooth enamel and your throat. And one serious caution, if you already take any medication for blood sugar, talk to your doctor first, because vinegar plus that medication can push your sugar down faster than you expect. That is number 9. The 10th food is lentils, and this one proves the entire point of the video, because lentils are a carbohydrate, and they will lower your blood sugar. Here is how. Lentils are built from a slow carbohydrate called resistant starch, wrapped in soluble fiber and a healthy dose of plant protein. That combination means the glucose inside the lentil is released into your blood slowly and steadily, over hours, instead of all at once. They carry that second meal effect too, so a bowl of lentil soup at lunch gives you steadier sugar into the evening. Clinically, swapping white rice or white potato for lentils a few times a week is one of the most reliable ways I know to bring down an A1C. That's your roughly 3-month average blood sugar. Aim for half a cup to a cup of cooked lentils a few times a week in a soup, a stew, or a cold salad with a little olive oil and a splash of that vinegar we just covered. They're filling, they're cheap, and they stretch a meal further than almost anything. That is number 10. Now let me tell you about someone, I'll change the details and call her Donna, because her story is really a stand-in for dozens of people I've seen, but it'll show you how this fits together. 63, recently retired, came in frightened because her fasting sugar was sitting around the high range, and her doctor had just suggested adding a second medication. She'd watched her own mother lose her eyesight to this same disease, and she did not want to spend the rest of her life climbing the medication ladder. We did not slash her carbohydrates to nothing. We added eggs and avocado in the morning and in place of cereal, a tablespoon of diluted vinegar before her bigger meals, lentils swapped in for the white rice, walnuts instead of the afternoon cookie, fatty fish twice a week, a little Ceylon cinnamon in her coffee, broccoli sprouts on her lunch sandwich. Working alongside her own doctor, and this is the important part, her numbers started easing within the first couple of weeks, and over the following months, her doctor was able to walk her medication back down as her body improved. She didn't starve herself. She ate more food, just the right food, and her own body did a great deal of the rest. That is the pattern, and it's the reason these work when cutting carbs alone so often fails. So let me tie all 10 together, because this is the heart of it. Every one of these foods is quietly handing your insulin its job back without starving you. The fiber foods, fenugreek, chia, lentils, slow the glucose down so your pancreas never has to panic. The fish, the walnuts, the chia, cool the inflammation that was jamming the signal. The cinnamon and the vinegar walk right up to the insulin receptor and help it grip again. The eggs and avocado steady the whole day from the first meal on. Do that meal after meal, day after day, and the cell that stopped answering the door slowly starts opening it on the first knock again. That is what reversing insulin resistance actually means at the cellular level. Before I give you tonight's plan, I need to draw one clear line, and please don't skip it. If you are on insulin or on a sulfonylurea, one of the older blood sugar pills, these foods can lower your sugar fast enough that your usual medication dose may suddenly be too high, and that can drop you into a dangerous low. So add these foods with your doctor watching your numbers, and let them walk your medication down as your body improves. Do not stop any prescription on your own. Bring this list to your next appointment instead. So here's exactly what to do, starting tonight in 5 simple steps. 1. Tomorrow morning, replace your cereal or toast with 2 or 3 whole eggs and half an avocado. That single swap changes your blood sugar for the whole day. 2. Tonight, soak a teaspoon of fenugreek seeds in a glass of water and drink it first thing in the morning. 3. Buy Ceylon cinnamon, not cassia, and start a 1/4 teaspoon a day in your coffee or oatmeal. 4. Before your biggest carbohydrate meal tomorrow, take 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar in a full glass of water, 15 minutes ahead. 5. This week, swap white rice or potato for lentils at least twice, and put fatty fish on the menu 2 nights. Stack these in over the next 2 weeks. You are not removing the foods you love, you are adding the foods that protect you. Now, everything we did today brings your sugar down during the day and after your meals, but a huge number of you keep telling me the same strange thing, that your highest reading of the entire day is first thing in the morning, before you've eaten a single bite. You fasted all night and your sugar went up anyway. There's a specific reason your liver does that while you sleep, and a specific way to quiet it down. I made a whole video explaining exactly what's happening overnight and how to wake up to a lower number. I'll put it right here on the screen. Go watch that one next, and I'll see you there.